So after a couple years worth of doing these and selling these and getting a bunch of them out there and feedback from people, I've made a few minor changes in how I want to try to teach people to set up and use my Robo Rest. Experience is always a good teacher. Number one, this is not going to give you machine shop perfect angles every single time. They're going to be close. They are going to be exactly repeatable, and there are a few things you can do to get your results more accurate, but depending on different people and stuff, everybody's results are going to be slightly different. Some people this drives crazy. Most people just learn to deal with it. And so this is to tell you how to do that. First, the numbers on the sides down here, those are your approximate angle degrees. So 30, 40, 50. The numbers up above are the 5, so this would be like 35, 45. If I did actually go and write all the whole numbers down there, they'd be so small you couldn't read them anyway, and figure this is simple enough and most people will be able to figure it out from there. The two key elements in getting accurate angles and getting them repeatable, one is height, which basically means when the platform is set at 90 degrees, it should be even with the hub or the center of the axle on your grinder, and the other is distance. There should be a 1/8 inch gap in here. These are set to be 6 3/8 inches above whatever it is they're bolted to. And I base that on what the one-way Wolverine platform does, and with theirs they say height can vary from 6 to 6.5 inches. I split it, came up with that, and that actually worked perfect with the old blue no-name grinder that I used to have from Woodcraft many years ago. I don't use that. Getting your height set can vary a lot from different grinders. So as you can see on this one, I had to build this up about 1.5 inches to get it up to height. This grinder sits up pretty high. Most of your 8-inch grinders, basically you have to set the grinder up on a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. I've got a 1 horsepower Rikon sitting behind me, and I actually had to sit the one-way Wolverine platform up on about a 5/8 inch thick piece of plywood just to get it up to proper height. These do work on 6-inch grinders, but then that grinder, you have to take that and raise that 1 inch or 2 to get it up to height. As far as distance, I do have a line across here that is supposed to be lined up even with the face of your wheel. The gap is 1/8 of an inch. No problems with this one. When I use that particular platform, that's the only one I use because I don't use gouge jigs. But this one bolts into place, it stays there, it never has to move, and especially if you're using the CBN grinding wheels, the wheel's never going to change shape, so it just goes in one place and stays there forever. The one-way Wolverine, especially if you're using gouge jigs, that's one you have to take off and put back on, sometimes frequently, and there's a number of methods to make sure it goes back into the exact same place every single time. Okay, so setting this one for height, I just noticed this today when I was getting ready for this video shoot that I'm actually sitting a little bit low, so I may have to go readjust that here before too much longer. That is close enough, that will work. And the platform here is set to 90 degrees. The freestanding Robo Rest mounts via 4 screws like this, pan head screws. Most of the time I remember to include them in the package when I ship them out. But what I do is position the rest where I want it to go, pretty close. There are slots in here, so you've got a little bit of wiggle room back and forth. Mark the holes where the screws are going to go. Try to drill about in the center so I've got wiggle room forward and back. And then the next part is making sure it's exactly where you want it. So once I get the screws in, I get them down so they're at least snug. I don't get them in real tight. And then to set my gap, the pin that I include with it is 1/8 of an inch. Slide it down in. This one's got just a little bit of a friction, so this one's just a little bit tight of a fit. So I'll take this, tap it back a little bit. And that's good. Next thing I'll do is tighten this side down really tight. I use a long-handled screwdriver for this. Your screw guns don't usually have the reach to get in there. That has that side tight. And then I want to make sure that this is pretty close to parallel. So on this side, I actually have a gap there. So tap it in just a little bit. And that's good enough. This is the one-way Wolverine platform setup. I am smart enough to realize that most people are not going to want to do strictly platform sharpening like I do. And at least 90% of the turners out there have this Wolverine type platform setup or a clone of it. It works very well. There have been a few issues, minor ones, with setting up the platform to get it to go in the Wolverine, and they seem to be inconsistent, which is one of those like, what's going on here? For me, to set mine up, since I didn't use the system, this particular one I had to put the platform up on about a 5/8 inch thick piece of plywood. I just put the wheel on, moved it up to where I wanted it, marked it out, and screwed it down. That seemed to work very well for me, but then I would get calls from people who, well, it's perfectly centered on the wheel, and when I clamp it down, it rubs up against the wheel on one side. And sometimes that appears to be the Wolverine platform. I don't know. As near as I can tell, every single one of these is square to the world, as my machinist calls it. And my best guess is that some of these will be slightly off-centered. Or when you tighten this up, it actually pivots it a little bit. And it can be different on one side than it is from the other, no matter how perfectly you set it up. You can have yours set up for your grinder, take it over to somebody else's place, use their grinder, and it won't be set up perfectly. And I have no idea why. Some people have taken and ground a little bit off of one edge of the platform. That doesn't hurt it. I would not suggest it. And it may be a major pain if you have to move your whole platform. Moving them forward and backward is a minor deal, other than new screw holes. You might have to change all of your jigs for setting your distances. But if it does get out of whack or is out of whack like that, I have no idea why. So again, we're setting for height at dead level or at 90 degrees. This is even with the hub there. So for setting my distance, 1/8 inch gap. This is a 1/8 inch pin. Usually I'll leave the table at 90 degrees, slide it up, and lock it. And that gets it probably close enough. So another way of getting it to the same spot, especially with the CBN wheels, this is a little piece of angle aluminum rather than iron. My friend Larry Carlin, who's in the other sharpening clip that I did, where I showed how he did everything, uses one of these. You do need an idiot string on it, so hopefully it doesn't get lost. Otherwise, you might have to make about 1,000,000 of them, because we know how things get lost in the shavings. But it's a stop block or a cheater stick. Goes on the shaft. Slide it up till it hits. Lock it in place. That gives you an exact spot every time. Another variation I saw from Mike Walt. If you don't know who Mike Walt is, look up his videos on YouTube. Very good. But he took and put a hose clamp around it. So you can screw it down good and tight. It's going to stay in place. Slide it up gently. Don't ram it up there. And that would be particularly handy if you're using one of the old-fashioned grinding wheels where they keep getting smaller and smaller the more you use them. So a permanent stop like this won't work every single time, but the hose clamp, you can adjust it as need be. Another way to adjust, if your wheel's rubbing against the edge of the platform, you can add or take washers out, shim washers. You do want the ones that are machined, not the ones from the big box stores, because they're pretty inconsistent. Another thing that can contribute to having this up too close to the wheel is if your platform and your base that it's screwed to are not screwed down tight. That can make it wiggle back and forth quite a bit. That can cause some of your variations that you'll get. Okay, there have been, I think, 2 instances, maybe 3, where this has happened. And this is just like in your turning, you're not supposed to move the tool rest while the lathe is running. Everybody does, but you shouldn't. One, somebody bumped the guy as he was adjusting it in. The other one, the guy wasn't paying attention. He moved it up, hit the grinding wheel, and the top platform got bent. I got the first one back, had him send it to me, and I looked at it, pulled it out, turned it upside down on a little mini anvil I had, put a piece of bar stock in there and tapped on both sides of it, and it tapped it out almost perfectly flat. Good enough, tight enough for me to my specs, and the other customers that happened to said they did that and it worked just fine. These pins, I use a 1/8 inch pin. They are a little tiny bit loose in here. That was something I never thought about till somebody pointed it out to me. I did notice that there was a little tiny bit of play in here that never made any difference to me. Dave Schweitzer commented to me about how if he had the pin on one side, it would vibrate out, but if you had it on the other side, it would stay in place. One way to solve that, take it, put a little tiny bend in it. That will make it more rigid in there. Some people step up to a 1/64 of an inch size larger pin. It will actually fit in there. The reason I don't sell these with that particular pin is our hinge is a piano hinge. That is not a, shall we say, high tolerance manufactured piece of equipment. So there's a little bit of play in it, and I would worry that you're not ever going to be able to get the pin to fit exactly, or be able to get it to fit in every single hole without having to jam it through. The 1/8 of an inch pin is good enough, and that does allow me for a little tiny bit of wiggle room. So if I'm rubbing on just a heel, and I'm a 1/10 of a degree off, I can put more pressure on the front, or I can put more pressure on the back to change that little 1/2 degree. It wasn't something I ever thought of until somebody pointed it out to me. One final comment on this too, while I'm remembering things. Minimum angle on this is 25 degrees. Some people may want it a little bit more acute or pointy for that. Some time ago I found out that a 1/2 inch piece of plywood makes about a 5-degree difference on it. Since this is stainless steel, this is not going to stick to it magnetically. You may be able to put a magnet on the bottom and embed one in the wood, or sticky tape, or just make some cleats so it'll stick over the edge. But this would change it from a 25 to a 20-degree angle, or from a 35 to a 30-degree angle if you want to keep it on there for that. And I guess a 1/4 inch piece of plywood would make that difference about another 2.5 degrees. So if you need it, it's there. I don't see any use for it, but some people like more pointy angles than I do. So laying this on top of the platform, this one's set at 60, so this would make it about a 55-degree angle if you did that. And you may want to trim some of this side back a little bit. This part down on the inside, angle it back.